The sky was calm that morning, a soft blue stretching across the horizon, peaceful and warm, as if nothing bad could ever happen. Children played near the domes of New Haven Colony on Mars, laughing, chasing drones through the red dust. Farmers checked their machines, and traders watched the ships gliding across the clouds. But high above, far beyond what the human eye could see, something terrible had already begun. A fleet, massive, endless, and alive with cold light, moved in silence across the void. Alien warships, black as night and shaped like blades, drifted into orbit around every human world. No message, no demand, no warning, just waiting. The first beam fell from the sky like a sunrise in reverse. It came without sound, just light, so bright that for a second everyone who saw it thought it was beautiful. Then the light touched the ground, and everything vanished. Buildings, fields, people gone in an instant. The sky turned red as fire spread across the horizon. The colony alarms screamed, but it was already too late. Every screen flickered the same message: incoming orbital strike. Seek shelter immediately. But there was nowhere to hide. The second beam fell, then the third, then hundreds more. The world itself began to melt. From orbit, the alien commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching through a holographic display. His body was tall and thin, skin gray like steel, eyes glowing with yellow light. His voice was cold and sharp when he spoke to his crew. "They call themselves humans," he said, almost amused, "but they burn like everything else." His officers laughed. The ships moved as one, circling each human world, turning them into flames. Earth's moon colonies, Titan cities, Mars, Europa, even the distant outposts near Alpha Centauri. One by one they burned. On Mars, amid the chaos, a little girl named Aria stood on a rooftop, clutching her mother's old necklace. She watched the sky tear open, her reflection glowing in the red storm. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "Why?" Before the blast reached her, a massive shadow passed overhead, a human evacuation ship, old and damaged, but still fighting to save whoever it could. Soldiers ran through the fire, pulling survivors into shuttles, shouting, "Move! Move!" The air trembled as explosions followed them. Above the flames, the alien commander raised his clawed hand. "Let them run," he said. "They must carry our message." His ships fired again, burning everything left behind. The humans who escaped carried nothing but smoke and silence. Days later, in the dark space between stars, the surviving ships drifted. The once proud human fleet was now just wreckage, engines dying, fuel gone. Inside one of the last surviving cruisers, a group of officers gathered around a flickering hollow map. The admiral, a man with grey hair and tired eyes, looked at the red dots marking every destroyed colony. His voice cracked when he spoke. "They didn't want peace," he said softly. "They wanted extinction." Another officer slammed his fist on the table. "We can't fight that fleet. We can't even reach them." The admiral looked up slowly. "Not yet," he said, "but humans don't die easy." The ship fell silent, floating through debris and ash. Outside, pieces of shattered worlds drifted like ghosts. From the black void, a small probe recorded everything: the burning skies, the screams, the alien laughter, and sent it back to the hidden corners of human space. Across the galaxy, a few distant human stations received the message. They watched their worlds turn to fire and felt their hearts turn to stone. Some wept, others swore vengeance. Deep inside a mining outpost near the edge of the Milky Way, a mechanic with a scar across his face turned off the screen and whispered, "Then we'll burn them back." His words spread through every survivor, every pilot, every soldier hiding in the shadows. Humanity had lost its worlds, but it had not lost its fury. Back aboard the alien flagship, the commander looked at the flames below and smiled. "This will remind the galaxy who rules," he said. But even as he spoke, his senses flickered. For a second, something moved beyond the radar. A faint human signal, too small to matter, but strong enough to be noticed. "Ignore it," he ordered. "They are finished." The signal disappeared, but it was already spreading, jumping from satellite to satellite. A message in human code, short and simple: "We are coming." The alien fleets left the burning ruins behind. never realizing they had just lit the fuse for a war that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity had fallen into the fire, but from that fire something new was being born, and it was waiting in the dark. The stars above the wrecked colonies were cold and silent now, their light faint against the endless black. Among the drifting debris of broken ships and shattered dreams, a handful of human vessels hid inside the shadow of an asteroid field. They were scarred, nearly powerless, and outnumbered beyond hope. Yet inside those ships, something unbroken still lived, the will to fight. The survivors called their refuge Outpost Remnant. It wasn't much, just hollowed rock and old metal patched together with whatever scraps they could find. The air smelled of oil and smoke. The lights flickered. Every corridor echoed with the low hum of dying engines. But to the few thousand humans left, it was home, and home was enough to start again. The Admiral sat in the dim command room, staring at a cracked screen showing red marks across a galactic map, every human world that had burned. His single remaining eye was tired but sharp. His voice was low when he said, "They thought this would end us. They forgot who we are." Around the table sat the last of humanity's commanders, pilots, engineers, soldiers, and scientists. None wore clean uniforms anymore. Their faces were gaunt, their eyes hard. The youngest among them, a pilot barely 20, spoke with anger in his voice. "We can't face them," he said. "Their ships are thousands. We don't even have enough fuel to reach Mars orbit." The Admiral turned to him slowly. "Then we stop trying to face them," he said, his voice calm. "We learn to hunt." The room fell silent. Those words hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Humanity had always been survivors. On every frozen moon, in every toxic world, they had adapted. Now they would do it again, not to live, but to strike back. Over the next months, the survivors began rebuilding in secret. The engineers scavenged wrecked ships from the battlefield, stripping alien metal and repurposing it for human designs. The mechanics worked day and night, turning mining lasers into plasma cannons, cargo hulls into stealth ships. In the depths of the asteroid, they built the first warship of the New Age, a black, sharp vessel covered in scorched armor and ancient human markings. They named it Phoenix. When it powered up for the first time, the ship hummed like a heartbeat returning to life. Every survivor felt it. For the first time since the burning of the worlds, they smiled. The Admiral stood before them in the docking bay, his uniform torn, but his posture unbroken. "We are not dead," he said. "We are not lost. We will strike from the shadows. We will remind them that humanity does not bow, it burns brighter." The crowd cheered softly, fists raised, tears mixing with grease and dust. They swore an oath right there, surrounded by smoke and steel. Every man and woman repeated the same words. "For every world they burned, we will light 1,000 fires." Beyond the asteroid field, the galaxy continued as if nothing had happened. The alien empire celebrated its cleansing. Their cities held parades, their leaders declared victory, and their children learned stories about the extinct species called humans. But deep inside the cold void, the so-called extinct species was watching, waiting, and learning. They sent out small drones to track alien patrols, listening to their frequencies, studying their weaknesses. Every movement was recorded, every pattern memorized. The humans were no longer an army. They were a storm building in silence. One night, the young pilot returned from a scouting mission with eyes wide in shock. "Admiral," he said, breathless, "I found one of their supply convoys, unguarded. Hundreds of fuel tanks, weapons, everything we need." The Admiral looked up, calm but sharp. "Then it begins." Within hours, the Phoenix and 2 smaller ships left the asteroid, their engines quiet, their lights dimmed. They moved like shadows across the stars, following the convoy's trail. On the bridge, the crew was silent. No music, no laughter, only the sound of the captain's voice. This isn't revenge. This is survival. When they reached the convoy, the alien ships were drifting peacefully, unaware of what hunted them. The Admiral stood and gave the first order of the new war. No mercy, no witnesses. The Phoenix's cannons lit the void, and for the first time since Earth burned, alien screams filled the comms. The convoy vanished in flames. The humans left nothing behind but a single floating signal, repeating endlessly in the dark. For every fire you started, another will rise. As the fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the Admiral closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "They will know our silence was never surrender. It was the sound of the storm coming." The alien convoy burned quietly in the black sea of space, drifting wreckage glowing like dying embers. No distress signals were sent. No survivors remained. For the first time since the fall of the human worlds, the galaxy had gone silent in fear. Rumors spread fast. Some said pirates were responsible. Others whispered a far older name, humans. But no one wanted to believe that. The aliens had seen humanity die. They had watched their cities burn. And yet, something unseen now moved through their borders, something fast, silent and merciless. On the hidden base, carved deep inside the asteroid known as Outpost Remnant, the humans watched the intercepted alien broadcasts play across cracked screens. A young communications officer smirked. "They're afraid," she said softly. The Admiral nodded, his one eye glinting in the dim light. "Good, fear is the first fire." The humans were no longer hiding. They were testing. Every strike was precise: fuel depots, weapon caches, patrol routes. Each mission left no witnesses, no wreckage that could be traced. The Phoenix led the attacks, supported by newly built vessels named Ashwing and Vigil. Together, they became legends, ships that appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and vanished into darkness. In the alien capital, fear began to seep into the High Council. The council chamber was carved from crystal and gold, filled with the glow of alien technology. But that night, all the light seemed colder. A tall alien commander stood before the council, his armor glinting under the blue lamps. "We have lost 3 convoys in one rotation," he said. "Destroyed completely. No signals, no survivors." The head counselor, old and frail with green-scaled skin, hissed softly. "You mean humans?" The commander hesitated. "There are signs. The attack patterns match their war strategies. But that's impossible." The room filled with nervous whispers. The word humans had become a ghost story, a nightmare that soldiers laughed at but secretly feared. "They are gone," the counselor insisted. "You cannot kill what no longer exists." Yet outside the council walls, their fleets doubled their patrols. Stations began arming planetary shields. Something deep down in their instincts told them the truth. They had awakened something that should have stayed silent. Back at the human outpost, the Admiral walked through the engine deck of the Phoenix, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. Sparks danced in the air as engineers worked, welding new armor plates taken from alien ships. The young pilot from before, now wearing a black flight suit marked with the symbol of the reborn fleet, a burning star, saluted him. "Sir," he said, "the crews are ready. We're calling ourselves the Fireborn Squadron." The Admiral gave a faint smile. "Then let's see how bright we can burn." That night, the Fireborn Squadron prepared for their first major operation, the destruction of Rylos Prime, an alien shipyard responsible for repairing half the Empire's fleet. The journey through hyperspace was long and tense. Inside the Phoenix, the lights were dim, the air heavy with quiet focus. No one spoke. Each person knew this mission could end them all. The Admiral stood at the viewport, watching the stars stretch into streaks of light. His voice broke the silence. "They took everything from us," he said. "Our worlds, our families. They think we are ghosts. Let them see what ghosts can do." When they arrived near Rylos Prime, the alien shipyard floated like a shining web of metal and light, a fortress built above a molten planet. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it, working and guarding. The humans waited in silence as the Admiral's voice came through the comms. "Target their fuel core. Hit them hard. Hit them fast." The first blast came from Ashwing. A single plasma torpedo shot across the void, striking the station's power grid. The explosion spread in seconds, tearing through ship after ship. The aliens panicked, screaming through their channels. "We're under attack! Unknown enemy, human signature detected." The human fleet moved like shadows, slicing through chaos. Within minutes, Rylos Prime was falling apart, its pieces glowing red before sinking into the molten planet below. The Admiral watched the burning wreckage on his monitor. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned. "That's for Earth," he said quietly. As the human fleet jumped back into hyperspace, the galaxy trembled. The alien empire issued an emergency order across all systems. Human threat confirmed. But it was already too late. Across the void, every human survivor who had hidden in silence now knew the truth. Humanity had returned to the fight. And the universe was about to learn what it meant to face a species born from fire. Deep in the void between stars, far beyond any known chart, the hidden human base glowed faintly within the hollow heart of a dead star. It was a place no alien had ever reached, surrounded by shattered moons and burned asteroids, a graveyard that now served as humanity's forge. The ships of the Fireborn Fleet hung silently around it, black and jagged, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. They were ghosts in the dark, rebuilt from the bones of war. Every vessel carried scars, every piece of metal held memory of a burned world. Inside the command center, dim lights flickered across a massive holographic map, showing the alien empire's territories, thousands of systems marked in blue. A growing cluster of red lights blinked near the outer rim, each representing a successful human strike. The Admiral stood before the map, arms crossed behind his back, his shadow stretching across the floor. "They still believe we are few," he said quietly. "Good, let them." The Admiral's second in command, a woman with short silver hair and a mechanical arm, approached. "We've completed construction on 5 more warships," she reported. "Each faster, tougher, and equipped with the new plasma coil system." The Admiral turned his head slightly. "How soon before they're ready for battle?" 3 days, she replied. "We're calling the class Inferno." A small, rare smile crossed his face. "Fitting name." Behind them, engineers moved like shadows, welding metal, testing thrusters, calibrating weapon cores. The noise of construction never stopped. Every human there worked with one purpose: to strike back harder. They had turned their grief into fire, their fear into steel. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien space trembled with rumors. Entire fleets vanished. Mining worlds were found as burned husks. No one knew how the humans were striking or from where. The alien media banned the word human, but the people whispered it anyway, in fear and awe. "They come from the dark," they said. "They never speak. They just burn." The Alien Council, desperate and paranoid, ordered massive fleets to guard every major system. Billions of resources were spent hunting ghosts, but every time they arrived, the humans were already gone, leaving only wreckage and silence. Back on the human base, the Fireborn pilots trained in zero-gravity chambers, fighting simulations that mirrored alien tactics. Each pilot wore a dark exosuit marked with a glowing ember symbol on the chest. The young pilot from before, now known by his call sign Ash-1, floated in the center of the chamber, breathing heavily. "They hit us harder than we expected," he said through his comms. "But they never adapt. That's their weakness." The Admiral's voice came through the speaker, calm and distant. "Exactly. They rely on fear and numbers. We rely on instinct. That's why we'll win." As the fleet prepared for its next mission, a secret meeting took place deep within the alien capital. The Council's war advisor slammed his claws on the table. "Enough. We've wasted fleets chasing shadows. If the humans want war, we'll bring it to them." He turned to his generals. "Deploy the Devourer fleet. Burn every asteroid, every moon, every rock that could hide them." The Council agreed, believing brute force would end the threat. What they didn't know was that the humans had already planned for this. The Admiral had expected them to move the Devourer fleet. It was bait. Days later, in the emptiness near the Vrax Nebula, the alien fleet entered the trap. Thousands of alien ships moved in perfect formation, their lights piercing through the dust clouds. "Scanners show no activity," said one alien officer. "It's quiet," their commander smirked. "Then we end this myth today." But at that very moment, the nebula began to glow red. One by one, the human ships uncloaked, surrounding them like predators in smoke. The Admiral's voice came through the alien comms in a cold, calm tone. "You came looking for ghosts. Congratulations, you found them." Before the aliens could respond, the Inferno-class ships fired. Plasma storms lit up the nebula, explosions tearing through the alien ranks. Their formation collapsed within minutes. The humans moved with deadly precision, silent, organized, unstoppable. When the battle ended, nothing remained but drifting wreckage and a single surviving alien ship. On its bridge, the wounded commander screamed through his communicator, "They're not extinct. The humans are alive. They're alive!" But his message reached too late. By the time it spread through the Empire, the Fireborn Fleet had already vanished again. Back at the hidden base, the humans watched the transmission replay on their screens. The crew cheered softly. For the first time, laughter echoed in the corridors. The Admiral didn't smile, but his voice carried pride. "Let them know," he said. "Let every corner of the galaxy hear that word again, humans." From that day, the galaxy changed. Merchants whispered of firestorms in the void. Soldiers refused patrols beyond safe space. Even the alien rulers stopped using the term extinct species. Humanity had returned from the ashes, no longer victims, but a force of vengeance. And though their fleet was still small, their legend was spreading faster than any fire could burn. The alien empire that once ruled with fear now trembled beneath it. Every week, a new report reached the Council. Lost fleets, vanished colonies, and destroyed trade routes. Entire planets went dark without warning. The pattern was clear. Wherever humans struck, nothing survived. Yet the Empire could not find them. Every trace of their enemies vanished into the shadows. Inside the Council's grand hall, panic grew louder with each passing day. The room glittered with gold and crystal, but the air reeked of fear. The Supreme Chancellor, an ancient creature with translucent skin, slammed his clawed hand against the table. "How many more?" he shouted. "How many more ships will disappear before someone stops these monsters?" No one answered. The general stood in silence, eyes low. Finally, one of them spoke, his voice shaking. "We underestimated them. We thought the humans were extinct, but they've become something else. Something we don't understand," the Chancellor hissed. "Then understand them fast. Because if we don't, this empire burns next." While the aliens argued, humanity prepared for its greatest strike yet. Deep inside the dead star, the Fireborn Fleet gathered. Hundreds of ships forged from ruin, powered by rage. Each vessel carried a name from the past: Mars Reborn, Titan's Wrath, Europa's Flame. On the command bridge of the Phoenix, the Admiral stood surrounded by holographic projections of alien systems. His voice was calm, but every word carried fire. "They burned our worlds without warning," he said. "They left us with nothing, but today we take everything from them." Around him stood his officers, faces lit by the red glow of the map, each one bearing scars, both seen and unseen. The second in command, her mechanical arm gleaming under the lights, spoke quietly. "Our spies confirm the alien High Council is meeting on their capital world, Zetherian. If we strike now, we end their control." The Admiral nodded. "Then we burn their heart." The plan was madness, an assault on the most fortified world in the galaxy. But humans had stopped caring about odds. The fleet departed in silence, engines dark, traveling through black space routes known only to smugglers and miners. Every pilot knew this could be their last mission, yet not one turned back. They weren't fighting for victory, they were fighting for justice. As the Phoenix led the charge, the Admiral looked out into the endless stars and whispered, "This is for the children who watched their skies burn." Hours later, the alien capital glittered like a jewel in the void, surrounded by rings of battleships, defense platforms, and planetary shields. Inside the council hall, the meeting continued, voices raised in panic. "They won't come here," one alien shouted. "They wouldn't dare." But before the words could fade, the alarms began to scream. Sensors across the planet detected hundreds of warp signatures. One officer gasped, "They're here!" The sky over Zetherian turned black as the Fireborn Fleet emerged from hyperspace. Thousands of red lights flickered across their hulls, glowing like embers in the void. The Admiral's voice came through every channel in the alien system, calm and cold. "You started this war. Now you will watch how it ends." The first barrage hit within seconds. Plasma storms tore through the alien defense grid. Planetary shields shattered like glass. Alien battleships tried to counterattack, but human warships moved like shadows, darting between explosions, targeting their engines, slicing through their ranks. From the surface, the alien citizens looked up and saw their sky filled with fire, just as humanity once had. The irony was not lost on the Admiral. On his bridge, he watched the burning planet below, his reflection glowing in the flames. "Do you see it?" he said softly. "This is what you gave us. We're just returning the favor." Down in the council chamber, chaos erupted. The Chancellor screamed at his generals to fight, but their fleets were gone. One of his advisors shouted, "Send a message, surrender." But before they could transmit, the chamber walls shook. The roof cracked, and through the smoke a massive explosion ripped through the city. The Fireborn Fleet had hit the central tower directly. The Chancellor fell to his knees, staring at the fires spreading across the horizon. "They are devils," he whispered. "No," said a dying general beside him. "They are humans." By the time the battle ended, Cytherian was nothing but smoke and molten glass. The Fireborn Fleet pulled away slowly, engines burning like dying stars. The admirals on every ship stood in silence as the capital burned behind them. No cheers, no celebration, just a heavy quiet that filled the void. Humanity had avenged their worlds, but the cost was clear. They had become the very fire they once feared. The Admiral turned from the window and said quietly, "We warned them. Now they'll remember." As the fleet vanished back into hyperspace, the message they left behind spread through the galaxy like a storm. "You burned our worlds." Humanity answered with fire, and across the stars, every species that once mocked humans began to whisper in fear, because now they knew the fire was still spreading, and it was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed. The once mighty alien empire was now a broken chain of smoking worlds and silenced fleets. Trade routes lay empty, star systems flickered without power, and the night skies of 100 planets glowed faintly red from the fires that would not die. Everywhere the same message echoed through intercepted channels. Humanity answered with fire. No one dared to speak their name aloud anymore. To the surviving aliens, human no longer meant a species. It meant a warning. Far beyond the ruins, the Fireborn Fleet drifted in quiet formation near a dying sun. The Phoenix sat at the center, its hull scarred and blackened, its engines humming low. Inside the command deck, the crew worked in silence. Screens flickered with damage reports, ship counts, and casualty numbers. Out of thousands, hundreds were gone. Yet even through the loss, none regretted their fight. The Admiral stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, watching the fading star outside. "We did what we had to," he said quietly. His voice was rough, heavy with exhaustion and sorrow. The second in command, her mechanical arms sparking from battle damage, stepped beside him. "They'll call us monsters," she said. He nodded slowly. "Then let them." The monsters won. Below deck, the pilots of the Fireborn squadron sat around the dim glow of the mess hall. Their uniforms were torn, their faces pale with fatigue, but their eyes burned with the same light. The young pilot, Ash 1, stared at the floor, turning a dog tag between his fingers. "I watched them burn our home," he said. "I thought revenge would feel different." An older soldier placed a hand on his shoulder. "Revenge doesn't heal. It just keeps the fire alive." The words hung heavy, echoing through the hall. Humanity had won, but at what cost? Their worlds were still gone, their people scattered across the stars. Victory had given them peace, but not purpose. In the following weeks, the humans received transmissions from across the galaxy. Some were threats, others were pleas. Small alien nations begged for peace, offering resources and technology to avoid sharing the same fate. The Admiral gathered his officers in the strategy room, the holographic map still glowing with red and blue lights. "They're afraid," the second in command said. "We could take everything." "The galaxy is open," but the Admiral didn't respond immediately. He stared at the burning systems marked on the map, then said quietly, "We could rule, yes, but that's not who we are. We didn't start this to build an empire. We did it to make sure no one ever burns another world again." That night, he broadcasted a message across every channel in the known sectors. The signal carried far, reaching every corner of the galaxy. His voice was calm, deep, and unmistakably human. "This is Admiral Ward of the Fireborn Fleet," he began. "You brought war to our homes. You called it justice. You called it order. But you turned our skies to fire. You thought we'd vanish quietly, but humanity doesn't vanish. We adapt, we rebuild, we rise." He paused, the silence more powerful than any weapon. "This war is over. We will not hunt the weak. But if you ever come for us again, the fire will return." The message ended, and the galaxy held its breath. On distant alien worlds, leaders watched in silence. Some trembled in fear, others in shame. A few, quietly, began rebuilding their treaties and alliances around one unspoken rule: never provoke humanity again. The myth of the Fireborn spread like a legend. Children whispered stories of ships made from shadows and captains with eyes of flame. To some, humans became monsters. To others, they became gods. Meanwhile, aboard the Phoenix, the crew finally allowed themselves a moment of quiet. The young pilot looked out at the stars, their light soft against the darkness. "Do you think we'll ever go home?" he asked. The Admiral walked up beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Home isn't a place anymore," he said. "It's the people who survived." Outside the window, new ships floated silently. Transports. Not warships, built to carry survivors to untouched worlds where they could begin again. As the Phoenix turned slowly toward the edge of the galaxy, the Admiral gave one last order. "Record this in our history," he said. "We burned for survival, not conquest. Let that be remembered." The engines roared softly, and the Fireborn Fleet began its final voyage into the unknown, leaving behind trails of golden light across the stars. In the darkness that followed, the galaxy remained quiet. The ashes of war drifted cold and endless. But somewhere deep within that silence, the spark of humanity continued to burn, steady, bright, and eternal. The war had ended, but the legend had just begun. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly healed from the fire humanity had unleashed. The wreckage of war drifted through the void, silent reminders of a conflict that reshaped the stars. Entire empires had fallen, fleets had vanished, and worlds once proud now lay in ruins. Yet from those ashes something unexpected grew: respect. The name human was no longer spoken in arrogance or hatred, but in caution, even reverence. The species that had risen from extinction was now the most feared and admired in the known universe. Far away, at the edge of the Orion expanse, the Fireborn Fleet stood anchored above a small blue world, their new home. Its air was clean, its seas calm, untouched by war. On its surface, cities were rising again, built not from greed, but from memory. Children played beneath twin suns, never having seen the horrors their parents survived. Humanity had found peace, not perfect, not complete, but enough. The Phoenix hovered in low orbit, its once scorched hull now gleaming silver. Inside the command deck, the Admiral stood before the same window where he once watched alien worlds burn. His hair was white now, his uniform faded, but his eyes still carried the same quiet fire. The second in command entered, her mechanical arm polished, her movement slow but steady. "All colonies report stable," she said softly. "Reconstruction on New Terra is complete. The people are calling it home." The Admiral smiled faintly. "Home," he repeated. "We almost forgot what that word felt like." She handed him a small data pad. "We've also received a message from the Galactic Council. They want to open peace talks with us." The Admiral didn't answer right away. He turned back to the window, looking out at the stars that had once been battlefields. "Peace," he said. "Strange how they only learn its value after the fire." Later that day, he recorded one final message to be sent across the galaxy, a message not of vengeance, but of warning and hope. His voice was calm, his tone steady, but every word carried the weight of history. "To every world that hears this," he began, "we are not your enemies. We are the memory of what happens when arrogance meets consequence. We fought not for power, but for survival. We do not seek to rule the stars, only to live among them." He paused, looking down at the Earth insignia stitched on his sleeve, its colors faded but unforgotten. The galaxy must remember this truth. Peace is not the absence of war. It's the choice to never start one again. The message traveled for light years, echoing across worlds. On alien planets, leaders watched and listened in silence. Some wept, others bowed their heads in shame. Even the young of once enemy species sat before their hollow screens, watching the old humans speak, learning that the monsters their elders feared were, in truth, survivors who had simply refused to die. When the transmission ended, the Admiral walked through the quiet halls of the Phoenix. The ship had become more than a war vessel. It was a living monument, a reminder of what humans endured and what they could become. He passed the training deck where new recruits learned navigation, the engineering bay, where old scars in the metal had been polished smooth. Everywhere he went, the people saluted not with pride, but with respect. They no longer fought for revenge. They fought to ensure history never repeated itself. That evening, the Admiral stepped onto the observation platform, where the twin suns set behind the new human city below. The sky burned orange and gold, a color once feared, now beautiful again. The young pilot, Ash 1, now a commander himself, stood beside him. "We did it, sir," he said quietly. "We built something that lasts." The Admiral nodded slowly. "No," he replied, watching the horizon. "We remembered something that never died." As night fell, the stars appeared one by one, calm, distant, eternal. Somewhere among them, old wrecks drifted, overgrown by time, the ghosts of battles long past. But the fire that once consumed the galaxy had changed shape. It was no longer destruction. It was light, and so humanity's final message to the universe remained engraved in memory and myth. "You burned our worlds," we answered with fire. But when the flames faded, we lit the stars instead. The Fireborn Fleet sailed into legend, and the galaxy would never forget the species that rose from ashes and taught even the stars to fear them.